to low enrollment, eliminate maintenance worker, maintenance secretary. We're going to be adding an HVAC instructor, bioscience instructor, counselor, special education instructor, and IT technician. We've been down an IT technician for a year and a half now, and poor Dennis is running around, you know, like a chicken with his head cut off. I mean, it's pretty bad. We need special ed, you know, personnel in there. Our IEP population has gone up slightly. We're up about 36%. My thinking is that I would, you know, have 3 special ed instructors, and I would have 1 designated for each one of the schools. So there's a go-to person from this district to current or to our career and tech center. I think the line of communications will open up greatly if I can do it that way, and then they will be concentrating on specific students, and then when they come back to us or specific issues that may be happening at the sending district, that student will come and seek out our special ed instructor. And of course, we're in the middle of negotiations with PSEA and ESPA, which is, you know, a really hard thing to go through right now. So we're trying to accomplish, you know, 2 big contracts, well, 1 big one and 1 decent sized one at the same time. So we're hoping that the JOC, you know, takes in consideration of if we're going to do a 5-year, make sure you do 1 less or 1 more, so we don't have to do it again in a couple of years at the same time. Because scheduling is a nightmare. Benefits overall, 10.39% increase. The medical has increased based on health trust fund look, premium equivalent rate increase of 9.2%. Anticipated change of the medical plan enrollment retirement is 7.9%. And PCERS rate, you know, it rose up to 33.43%, an increase of 2.5 addition to the payroll. Programs overall 0.87% increase, which is, you know, it's pretty good. You know, my goal is to make sure that all of our programs, all 21 programs, are up to or above industry standard as PE requirements, and we still have a little ways to go in some of my programs. But we just had a 339 evaluation. The state came in at the beginning of the year. Evaluated every one of our programs, evaluated our budget, evaluated everything dealing with our school, and we walked away unscathed. No recommendations. So that was, you know, so now we're good for 5 years. We're not going to rest on our laurels. We're going to up that ante a little bit more. The supply budget and existing programs have been kept very close. This year, Gail and I sat down with all of my instructors. First time in years.
Probably about 4.
First time in years that you know, we sat down and I had them explain to me why they need that amount of money, and you know, then we made decisions on what is actual needed and what is you know, on their wish list, and a lot of that stuff we're gonna, you know, go out and we're gonna apply for grants, Perkins grants, matching grants. And I have a lot of instructors that are going out, and we're getting a lot of donations from business and industry, which is really helpful. So my mechatronics program, 2 years in, he's out there soliciting new equipment all the time, and people are just throwing things at him, and his kids are building unbelievable stuff in there. So we're going to continue doing that, and we're going to try to bring in some business and industry to use our facility. And if they use our facility, they'll outfit our facility with brand new equipment. So program equipment 9.35% lower. In 20, a difference of $18,000. This does not include new equipment for HVAC or biosciences, which is part of the one-time $650,000 allotment, when possible equipment costs will be covered by grants. Support services overall, a 16.39% decrease. Cuts made in various line items in the effort to keep costs down. Largest decrease in technology and maintenance budgets. Budgetary reserve is $200,000 provided for unknown possible emergency substantial cuts have been made to some expense budgets, and this this reserve will be needed in the event that cost cutting went too deep. Hopefully not deeper than 200,000. And to maximize your investment, student performance on the Perkins academic and algebra and literature indicators have been above the state expectations for all but 1 year over the past 5 years, which is phenomenal with the home schools, what you guys are doing with your students and then coming to us. And we have academics embedded into our programs on a daily basis. They're doing math every single day, they're reading every single day, they're writing every single day. It's not just walking in, picking up a wrench, and a hammer. They all have to learn how to use that equipment. Upper Bucks has implemented a technical entrepreneurship program in partnership with Bucks County Community College, where our students and your students may earn 20 credits for scoring advanced on NOCTI or NIMS. The NOCTI test is a test that the seniors will take at the end of their career with us. It's a written test, usually about 200 questions, and it's a practical test, usually of about 5 to 6 different projects that they have to do. Our instructors cannot be in the room. We bring in outside business and industry people. They come in, they have a rubric, they score them, we seal them up, we can't touch them, we send them out to get graded, and they come back. If they score competent on a written and advanced on the hands-on, they're not advanced. They have to be advanced in both, advanced and advanced. So to receive a lot of the SOAR credits, a lot of those credits, you have to have advanced on both. We are at about 68% advanced right now. The state recognizes 75%. So my goal for advanced only is to get to 75 next year. But our competent and advanced, we're at 89%, and the state's at about 82%. So we're pretty much above state average. We're going to increase work-based learning experiences through cooperation education. So I'd like to roll out a plan next year at one point where every one of our students are going to have a co-op experience. They come in as sophomores or freshmen. I'd like them to go out for a job shadow at least one day within the first 15 days of school. It's going to be a large task to accomplish, but we did it with 12 sending districts. I think I could do it with 3. What I want every one of my 9th graders or every one of my first level students coming into any one of my programs, I want them to go out and do a job shadow. So if they're going to work, if they want to go and they're going to be taking machine shop, and they want to, they want to be a machinist. Well, I want them to go to one of our local machinists or machine shop, organizers, job shadow for a day. If they come back and say, man, I don't like it, then I can take that student and place him or her somewhere in another program, send them out for a job shadow to try to figure out where they want to be. Then after next year, they'll do they'll do it the job shadow first, and then they'll do the co-op will be their senior year, where they'll come in, and as they're progressing in their task lists, so for instance, auto mechanics has 238 tasks that need to be completed in a 4-year period. Some of those tasks, there's 2 or 3 combined in one. Others you might take 2 days to complete, depending on the size of the task, depending on the student. So when you are eligible to go on co-op, I want every one of my kids to have a co-op experience as a senior. So according to PDE, they have to at least meet or be above 80% of their task completion. So then we take that task list, my co-op coordinator takes the task list to our local auto dealership. They look at it and they say, yep, we can accomplish these, other 20% of the tasks in a 5-week time frame. So the kids are getting paid, they're having a hands-on experience, and they're having their task completed. So when they come back, the task is completed. They maintain an 80 average, they complete the task 100%, and they score advanced on NOCTI, and they're going to be eligible for at least 20 credits or more, depends on the articulation for each one of our programs. Increased work-based learning experience through cooperative education. We're explaining that we're at 34.8% of NOCTI eligible students graduating have had a work-based learning. I want to bring that number up significantly. And then 87.7% of Upper Buck students graduated with at least one PDE recognized industry certification. So PDE recognizes certifications that pertain to each one of the programs. Some programs are offering 2 or 3, PD recognizes 5 or 6. Well, my instructors are going to be instructed that I want to offer 5 or 6, not just 2 or 3. And that is where that, I spoke earlier, where the meat of those certifications are going to come in. And our students are going to have an upper hand when they're out applying for jobs. And that's going to be driven by our Occupational Advisory Committee. And those are business industry that will come in, and they'll explain to, and they'll look at the certifications, and they'll give me, the highest priority to the lowest priority. So we make sure that we're not just giving them 2, OSHA certifications, we're going to give them all 6. Student performance on the NOCTI and NIMS, 86%, 95% over the past 5 years. Investing in programs at work, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration, as well as bioscience technology. This year, the 2019 Farm Show, we had a grand champion for the first time in 40 years. Dual enrollment with Bucks County Community College. We're going to continue with that. We secured $63,000 for STEM and CT initiatives, for food truck, summer camp, and internships, which is pretty awesome. And that's one other added accolade. Our students for the first of Bucks County, Pennridge, Palisades, and Quakertown, we had 48 District Skills USA place medal finishers. We had 20 first place finishers, and we had 6 buys going to the state. So we're sending 26 kids to Hershey in April 10, 11, and 12 to compete against everyone in the state. We had 57% out of the 5 districts that competed. We brought in 57% of the medals. Small Upper Bucks versus LCTI, and boy did I rub it in their faces. So we had we beat LCTI, we beat Bethlehem, we beat everybody else that was there, and we had a ceremony the other day. It took us, instead of 2 days to do it because of all the snow days. It seems like every Wednesday there was a cancellation. We had to cancel a competition. So we had the presentation at the school, and the kids loved it. And then our board, we're going to recognize all 48 of them at our board meeting next Thursday. So, that's another. But I think Quakertown edged Pennridge in the medal count there.
Oh.
You didn't need to bring that up. Move on.
You were doing good till then.
Now we got goals for next year.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions regarding the budget presentation or any information from the tech school?
I have a question about the $650,000. What else is included in that other than equipment? You said part of it was equipment.
For the programs?
The $650,000 for the 2 new programs that you're taking from capital projects.
Well, we have to. Part of that is going to go towards the building that wasn't touched during the renovation. We're going to convert our current landscaping program into a bioscience program, and that building has not been touched. The only thing that was put on there was a roof, so we have to do a little bit of remodeling. We have to add a lab. We have to add a clean lab. We've partnered up with Lampire. He's going to come in and guide us on what good equipment is and what isn't, so we're not going to waste our money, and he's going to probably do a lot of donations as well.
This is a class 10 clean lab, do you know?
I don't think it's going to be that high, but it's going to be a clean lab. you know, where the kids are gonna walk in and it's gonna be, you know, enclosed in glass. We're gonna have all the microscopes and centrifugals, and they're gonna, it's, you know, plant and animal science. And, you know, we're the hub of biotech, you know, Bucks County. You know, right outside of Doylestown, there's 25 startup companies, and they're building on to that existing building now. So we see a need here, and that's gonna bring in, you know, more students with excitement. My animal tech program is full, and it's been full forever. And I have 20 kids on a wait list to get into that animal tech program. So if I can combine that animal tech program with my landscaping program, when we're in turn bioscience, we're gonna do plant science and animal science, it's gonna be a win-win. You know, so they'll be able to cross-train each other. If that, hopefully I answered that question.
I just want to thank you for all of your work on this, and all 3 sending districts on working on this. Everybody was really happy with the outcome, and you know, and the way that it's you know, that it's funding the tech school. So we all appreciate that, and I also want to thank you and Dr. Bolton and several of our board members went and met at the tech school earlier this year to try to come up with some plans on how we can help inform our students here and help, you know, raise awareness of the options that they have available at the tech school. And it sounds like it's working, and we're seeing a lot of interest, and that's great, because that's one of the things that we've heard is, you know, that was something that we needed to step up our game on, and so I'm really glad that we're doing that. So I appreciate everybody's efforts on that too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Food trucks should be here end of April, or sometime in May. I'm gonna have,
Hey,
we'll have a, we're gonna have a stuff.
I think we're gonna.
hey,
I think all the other
Joan,
food trucks in the area are not gonna be happy
Joan.
with us, because our food is gonna be
Free will.
pretty top notch, so.
I have that. Are we, I guess we'd be allowed to, yeah.
he's got to get a spot down there.
We're gonna exclusively,
Jeff, you got to look at free will. See if you can get on a spot
Yeah,
there.
except for the, I don't know if they were comfortable with that.
Who, free will?
No, because of it being alcohol.
It's kids. They're not drinking. They're serving food outside. And you can't, right?
They're not drinking.
They're not drinking. What's the point? I just want the money. Come on now. That's a good,
It is a great
it's
location.
a good location with a captive crowd.
I agree.
What's this?
So are we doing, we're doing,
I don't know what.
or the,
What is it?
or the, class, you know,
I didn't see that on here.
it's,
Scheduling.
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's the word I was looking for.
What is it?
Lebowski?
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sweda.
We're going to move on to the high school scheduling presentation. Mr. Lebowski? You're up.
You're on.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David Lebowski, assistant principal at Pennridge High School, class of 2020, the junior class. And I have the pleasure of presenting a lot of numbers this evening to you. So I provided a packet for each of you. That packet contains the following information: recommendations page, which is the cover page. I've also provided historical numbers for you to review. Also department sheets for each department, and on the presentation screen we'll go through those sheets as well. And then one sheet that's a course request tally sheet. So with that said, I'd like to begin with the course the cover page, and highlight the areas where we have some staffing needs, so I can explain each of those. So I'd like to start with science. So if you wouldn't mind paging through.
Sorry, can we just park there for a second? Right, I just want people to make sure they digest what they're looking at in terms of where we are from a department standpoint. Any department that's not listed with anything other than blanks, right? If it's all blank, that means the staffing is staying at the same level as current year, right? Mr. Bosky will show that. The columns then, the staffing need is the increased need at the high school level only. Mr. Lebowski will explain those in detail for each department. The next one then talks about how we would cover that, or are there other decreases that impact this? Because the ultimate column is the last one that is really what is the cost to the school district. And because there are changes elsewhere, it doesn't mean just because we're going up at the high school, that's an added cost. So for instance, the science, you'll see that we are covering that through using the sixth section. And just to remind you, the new contract prices that at $3,500. So you can see everywhere a sixth section is indicated, it's there. Right? When you look down at, where's the decrease? Like in art, you can see that there's a 0.4 need at the high school level, but we know already that at the middle school level, we're able to decrease by 0.2. So the overall cost is just 0.2 to the district in terms of, from a budget standpoint, in terms of FTE. In both of those cases where the two FTEs are, we currently have part-time employees. It would be almost impossible to find just an art teacher to teach one class. That'd be a very unique individual who'd be willing to do that. And so in both of those cases, in both business and art, we have current part-time teachers, right? So they would not be six sections. They would be a suggested increase to a part-time teacher. They'd have to accept it, right? And so they could say no, and if they do, then we'd have to look to collapse and things like that. And that cost is anywhere from $10,000 to $14,000 for a 0.2 FTE, depending on where they are on the salary scale. Because it's an extra class for them, and so it does matter how much. But that is about $10,000 to $14,000 when you're looking at what that 1.2 FTE would cost. So those two together are about $25,000. So as you're thinking about adding up that last column, right? And then Mr. Lebowski is going to park in each of those departments. So if you have questions, he'll be very glad to answer them. But I just want to give you an overview of where we're heading in terms of costs and the added staffing. So thank you, Mr. Lebowski.
Thank you, Dr. Bolton. And so just so to give you an idea, we are next year going to be gaining 30 students. So that's the difference between the incoming freshman class and the outgoing senior class. Usually about by 3. So let's start with science first. So science, if you wouldn't mind, turning to the science, which is, I believe, page 5.
Now, we're going to the very last pack. It has blue on the top. It is not stapled. So the very last pack that is unstapled.
It's like this.
Thank you
Yes.
for those of
I
us.
am holding it up. Yep. And then you are going to the page that says science, which is apparently page 5.
Lower left hand corner.
Yep. No, they all say page 1.
It's on here, down here, lower left hand.
Right.
Yeah,
But they
we
don't.
can-
So the
And
bottom
they're all
left
different
of that
directions.
document are the
Got it.
Okay.
department names.
Follow along at home. And then you're able to show it on the screen so that people are looking both ways. Yep. Because they're all marked page 1. So look for the one that says science.
It's okay. We'll figure it out.
So I'm gonna move
For
over here,
science.
because I can't see.
Okay.
Bigger now. So if we go to science.
Okay.
So in science, we have 22 teachers, approximately 108 teaching periods. I just want to point out a few items here. As you'll see here, on all the 4 core departments, there are courses here that are special ed courses listed. So if you go down to physical science 1A and to biology 1A, those are what's called part-time learning support. And it's noted down here that these courses are taught by special education teachers, and therefore they're not part of the science staffing. In addition, I want to bring your attention to the course on here called Anatomy and Physiology. Some of you might be saying, scratching your head, well, class size is 56.5. So basically what that is, that course right now, there's 3 sections in science and 3 sections in phys ed. It's a course that has a phys ed and a science credit given to it. So this year is 3 and 3. Next year, it's 3 and 2. I wasn't able to split the students out because there's a spreadsheet formula here, but I just want to point out to you that there are 2 sections for the science teacher, and for health and phys ed, there'll be 3 sections of anatomy physiology for the phys ed teacher. So that's the reason why you'll see the 56.5 class size.
So it is 113 students divided across 5 sections, not 2 sections.
Correct.
Right.
Also, to your right here, you'll see sections on the other sheets as well. This identifying co-taught. We typically have co-taught sections in Bio 1 academic, Earth and Space. And so, right now, AP Seminar is our new course. This is the very bottom. And AP Seminar, there are 65 students that asked for it, that requested it. And at this point, we're going to be running 3 sections of this new course at 21.7 per class. And right now, AP Seminar, we have to determine whether or not it's going to be taught by a science teacher or an English teacher. As Dr. Dormer had noted in her presentation, in the curriculum committee, that there's other teachers that can go, wide group of teachers that can teach it. And Dr. Dormer is here this evening, and obviously there are teachers that have expressed interest in doing so.
And I think we should take a second to celebrate that, right? This is a brand new AP course that, you know, we've brought to the district, and so students don't know, right? This is, and it's not very common, so it's not like they're talking to their buddies in Souderton, right? It just is not a common AP course. And so to have 65 students who are saying, hey, here we go, and 33 others who are saying, okay, if I don't get something I want, I'm willing to consider that course, I think is a wonderfully healthy number. The concern about starting a new AP is always the students kind of wait to see how they do before they don't want to be the guinea pigs. They want to be the second round. And so often the first year number is low. And so that is a wonderful tribute to the conversation that the guidance counselors and the teachers had with the students, and as well as the content itself. So that's a really good number from that standpoint. So we should be really happy with that.
Are there any questions for science?
I have a question. Dr. Dormer,
Yes, sir.
this is the lowest number, I think, in the all 28 years that I've been here for our AP Physics C. Reason?
I believe so. I believe you are correct about that. According to our AP Physics C teacher, he expected a drop. This is the first cohort of students who had the opportunity for AP Physics 1 as sophomores.
Right.
So, you know, we weren't sure what the long-term implications or impacts of that would be, and now we're noticing as 12th graders are not necessarily following up by taking AP Physics C.
I don't think that's a surprise.
Right.
A disappointment perhaps, but not a surprise. Okay, thank you.
Our other course, so if there are no further questions for science, I'd like to turn to business.
Now, is that further in the packet or earlier in the packet?
That is actually further in the packet, so
Great.
it's page 8, which is
Okay.
3 behind the science.
Which one did you say?
Business?
Business.
It's page 1.
Yeah, right.
Business on a recommendation
Business down the bottom, yes.
is 0.2, and just look at business.
Only take this packet. That's what he did, the pages.
So business department was slightly up this year in terms of their overall requests compared to last year. And so in terms of making sure we honor the requests of the students, with the 0.2, we have a teacher right now at this time that is a 0.8. And so we'd be looking at potentially increasing that teacher to a 1.0 in order to cover the student requests. I will point out a new course for business. Tech Specialist, Microsoft certification. This is new. We had 24 students requested, 13 alternates. And so at this point, 24 is a good start for this course.
I think this is a good department to point out one other piece that comes into play, because sometimes we get sometimes there are questions regarding class sizes, and so what's an appropriate number, and that's different depending on what you're looking at. One of the added pieces of information is this alternate course here, in terms of the number of students who are asking for that if they don't get something that they're scheduled in. So it gives you a sense for where students whose schedules don't work out will fall, and so if you can leave a couple seats in those indications, that's a good thing. Now sometimes you can't. You look at things like in the entertaining marketing, and because that's what I'd call a bad number, right? 55 is a bad number because you run 2 at 27 instead of 3 at 17 or 18. There isn't going to be a lot of flexibility in those classrooms, but a place like small business management, where you're running it at 22, there will be some fall for students to go there. We looked at something that's called the hold report, and the hold report tells you how many students asked for the class, but then how many actually got it. And so we look at some of the history in terms of, there are some of these classes that you look at and say 40 kids scheduled it, but it ends up with 60 in it every year, because that's a spot for alternates that kids fall into. Or you have some courses where 38 kids sign up for it, but because of where it falls and how it fits with other classes, only 32 held it, so it didn't hold. And so we look at that when we're looking at class sizes to try to build in some space for those classes that we think are going to build. And to the ones who we think are either going to fall or stay the same, we schedule them pretty tight in terms of class sizes, because we know it's probably not going to go up anyway from that standpoint, right? And that's not always possible, but this is a good department when you're looking at things that aren't core courses that not every student has to take. That happens with electives a lot, and so Mr. Luboski does a nice job of trying to have some leeway for kids who are going to need courses.
Any questions on business? So the next one is on the chart is art. So
Next page.
art is the very next page, number 1.
Never gets old.
So art, interesting, this year we had advanced art was a course that typically was only having one section running, and this year the art department has no students signed up for 2 sections. So at this point in time, we have, it says here north decreased 0.2. So basically we have a high school teacher who's currently a 0.4 at the middle school, a 0.6 at the high school. And so in talking to the middle school, Dr. Cole indicated that North does not have a need for an art teacher. So the art teacher at the high school now is a 0.2. And at this point, we would look to make him, the high school teacher, increase the 0.4, make him full-time at the high school, and cover that with another teacher that is in another building, elementary or middle school building. Art is one of those, again, elective departments that there's a lot of mobility as students move through, as we go through the scheduling process, and some of these numbers here will increase, as you can see here, with some of the alternate numbers are high. Ceramics, art and design, 134, and drawing and painting as well, 126. So that's obviously a lot more alternates than the actual primary request. And of course, our intro to 3D animation, our digital design, our advanced 3D animation, they're still holding true. We have a cap of 25 in there for their for the computers and the software licenses. Any questions about art? The next page is family consumer science.
I just have, so when you're trying to figure out, who gets the class and who gets pushed off, I guess, is it a seniority kind of thing? Because then some of the kids would have an opportunity next year to take it, and then the older, obviously if you're a senior, you wouldn't.
Correct. Yes, that's typically how we look at that. Absolutely, the guidance counselors. So my goal every year is to get the schedule built into the guidance counselors by May 1st, so they can sort through the conflicts. That's school, and they'll have a month to do that then before students leave this summer. So next department is Family Consumer Science. So Family Consumer Science, we have 2 teachers in the department that currently this year are teaching 6 sections. And so they're going to teach those 2 6 sections again this year to help us with the request of the students. As you can tell, food prep is always a popular course. There are, again, very high alternate numbers, 280 versus 270 for primary. Indicated down here in the bottom. Currently we have 2 teachers teaching 6 sections, and this is what they're going to do this coming school year as well. Our child development class, this is our daycare. These are actually combined, and they're blocks, and they run back to back in the block for 2 periods. And Mrs. Ryan runs that program. So are there any questions for Family Consumer Science?
It's interesting because Family Consumer Science, this is my first time through it, so I apologize for, I have a lot of, I love this. The Family Consumer Science is one of those departments that if you look at it, there are a couple, like you look at food prep, and food prep is one of those courses that is really, really popular. And you can see that we're running them at class sizes of 30, which is not optimal in terms of that, and there would be no room for it. But we have maxed out our staff. And so you then sit there and say, okay, well, do you try to look for a part-time Family and Consumer Science teacher? And so this is where some students are going to shuffle around in terms of may not get, and then they move to their alternate. And hopefully it's someplace else in this department, because there's other classes where there is plenty of space for students to add into. But it's that interesting piece about how the numbers work out if you look at some of the class sizes and where kids are doing requests. And it's because the teachers are willing to teach 6 sections that we are allowed to, we can accommodate as many kids as we can. So the teachers really are going out of their way and trying to match the students' requests and give them what they want. So it's just an interesting department that way, that it's one that is really up against it in terms of numbers. So, which is a good thing, but it is.
So the next department is Tech Ed, STEM. And so that is 2 pages after FCS. So a lot of colors here. So in this case, the green is indicating drop, it's a strike through, so we're going to drop this course. It has low enrollment numbers.
Oh.
So those 2 courses are going to happen to run next year. At this point in time, we have 3 teachers in the department that are willing to teach a 6 section. It's indicated down here below in the yellow. I'm sorry, right here off to the right. 3 6 sections. So there are 3 teachers that are willing to teach a 6 section. As you can see, the blue is combining, so we typically combine CAD 1 and CAD 2. Robotics 1 and 2, and also Artistic Wood 3 honors and Wood Manufacturing Tech honors will be combined as well. So that's what that's indicating there. This department, as you know, has rock star status in regards to the guitar building. I mean, literally and figuratively, I've been in there, and it's amazing work that they do, and I'm sure all of you have seen it as well in some of the presentations that Mr. Pites and Mr. Yanakaitis have done. They continue to have some success in there. And again, this is an elective department, so your alternates are going to be much higher usually, typically, than your primary number.
So for the wood manufacturing, that we have 8 students in one class, and the maximum is 18, is that?
So for Artistic Wood 3?
No, the bottom one.
Well, we're combining them, and that it's hard because they're not next to each other.
Yeah, and I apologize for that, because it might form the, but yes, we would combine Artistic Wood, the 27 and the 8 students here. Those would be combined.
into 2 sections. So it would be 35 students over 2 sections, so it would be 17 and a half kids per section, roughly, so.
Virtually
Yep.
every year,
Yep.
right?
And it allows you to give the students what they want. So the teachers, like, it is harder for the teacher because they're teaching 2 different levels at the same time. Now, these are level 3 and 4, so they are a little more independent. But it does then allow us to accommodate the student requests because these are our most, persistent, if not most talented, woodworking students as they've gotten to level 4 in terms of the honors.
I'm personally saddened by the lack of interest in commercial architecture and green construction. Because those are big fields coming up in the future.
Correct.
Green construction especially.
And
So,
they didn't, I'm sorry, but they didn't run this year again either. This current year, they're not running as well. And so we've had discussion with Mr. Andrew regarding this, because we have Architecture 1 that's holding. And so the thought is to create an Architecture 2 perhaps that would combine commercial and green.
that's
And-
what I was just gonna ask you.
And what happens, Architecture 1 in years past used to be a semester course. It was made a couple of years ago to a year-long course.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not sure if that's having any kind of impact as well on in terms of commercial and green. So,
Now, one of the things to also be proud about, because one of the pieces as we go through this is when do students not get what they request, right? There are 10 students who wanted some form of architecture and are not going to get that, and will pick an alternate instead, right? And they may fall in love with the alternate, but it's something they wanted that they're not getting. If you look through all the departments and look at the green, it adds up to only 21 requests, which is the lowest of the 3 years of data I had access to by far in terms of the number of students who have been cut from classes. And there are how many thousands of requests, Mr. Lebowski? Is it, I can't even imagine how many
It's close to-
thousands of total requests.
almost close to 20,000.
So 21 out of 20,000 requests we had to cut ahead of time, which means we really do, Mr. Lebowski and the teachers really go out of their way to try to accommodate as many of those requests as humanly possible. It is an amazing percentage that they're able to do, but also because of the board support, right? I mean, when we're adding part-time staffing, we're adding money. And so that's asking you for your support to be able to do that. Because if we don't, we're going to have to cut other sections, right? That's how you get to any number you want. You cut sections and kids have to go into alternates where there's room. So I do know that unfortunately it's 10 of the 21 are on this page, but overall it is a really good number of students that we are only forced to cut out of their request. It's really,
So in this case, though, we are not dropping the course, we are simply not running the course, correct? Because you use both terms.
yeah, good. That's a good clarification.
Not running,
Right.
they're just
Just not
dropping
running.
this year.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that is a good clarification.
And so into Dr. Yardell's point, I mean, there are courses in the past that have have not run for a couple of years, and so then we have to look at our program of studies, and at that point, we're going to eventually drop
Yeah,
from the
decide if
program
it
of
was
studies.
sunset them.
Correct.
We gotta get marketing changes. Start a campaign.
Yes. So that was tech
There's
ed.
no money for it.
On to music. So music is
History, right?
next page, right after tech ed. So let me point out here in music, there's a new course. It's called Chamber Orchestra. There were 12 students that signed up. You actually had to audition with the music department, with Marissa, the orchestra teacher. And those are the 12. So that's a 4-year course. We share Marissa with the elementary schools. She's only a .2 at the high school. So in terms of adding this new course, we noted here on the enrollment sheet, she's obviously not going to be at the elementary school for that .2, and then now transfer to the high school. So she will be a .4 at the high school. And Mrs. Werner and I are in discussions regarding sharing her with that. And going into it, Mrs. Werner, the music coordinator, K through 12, obviously notes that and understands that we need Marissa at the high school to teach chamber and then also teach her current course, which is full orchestra.
With a net no cost to the district simply because at the elementary level, we are able to accommodate one fewer section. And so as we looked at scheduling at the elementary level, because this is a K through 12 department, it is one of those areas where we're able to do that.
So those of you who are new, again, the blue are combined, so this is symphonic. Mr. Fair, concert band as well is combined. The full orchestra, three means run 3 days out of the cycle. 6 is obviously 6 days out of the cycle. And so the full orchestra actually pairs up with our mixed choir down here, which is also run 3 days. It runs 3 days out of the cycle as well. So students have an opportunity, period 2, then to mix and match and take full orchestra along with mixed choir. The new courses last year were guitar studio and music and media. And in this past year, Mr. Fair did teach a 6th section to get guitar studio off the ground. And as you can see, it has plenty of alternate requests for guitar studio. So, are there any questions for music, regarding music? And again, music tech did not run last year, and again, unfortunately, we only had 3 students
You just
selected.
don't have the interest, yeah.
So there's loss of interest in music tech 1 and 2.
Yep, you just don't have
Yes,
the.
because years ago, that was a fairly popular course.
Yes.
Now, on the other hand, AP Music has never reached 15 in all those years, right? As much as I think it's an
Because we have this thing to do so.
ideal course for musicians, but obviously they don't think so. There's something that doesn't draw them to that course. I don't know what it is. Because the teachers have changed over time. It's not just a teacher.
Right.
Mr. Lubowski, what is the history of AP Music Theory in terms of the number of students? Is
We were
7
just talking.
common? Were
Yes.
you two just talking about it?
Yes.
All right, sorry. I don't multitask, so
I'm
that's.
not listened to. Thank
Right,
you.
right, no.
So, yeah, AP Music Theory is typically a course that we've run it with 6. And so I will tell you, it's a singleton course. So you may run it with 6, and we end up, at the end of the year, might have 9. Or by the start of the school year. Because then there's some interest and students decide that okay, I want to take it. But it's, to Dr. Yarnell's point, it sounds interesting, I guess, and the students, it just doesn't, what
It
students.
has never drawn students to any great degree, as many years as we've run it. We've run it a lot of years.
So is it something that we should look at revamping in some way that would attract students if they're not interested?
Unfortunately,
I
your
don't know how much
AP
you can
curriculums, you
revamp.
have,
Not really.
you have
Right.
almost
You
no.
go to a
Much
different
at all.
Well,
AP
yeah,
course,
that's
right?
We can
I don't
revamp
think-
music tech, but we can't revamp AP
Right.
Music Theory because that's a
Serious
college
way, yeah.
board set. But that is one of the, when you look at financial questions, right? Because it is a reasonable question to ask. We are running a section for 7 students. So whatever that costs, whatever that one class costs for that teacher, the question is it worth that or not? And those are when you look at our staffing and we look at music being able to be flat. And in terms of talking with Mr. Daubert about what can the budget handle from a staffing standpoint, those are really honest conversations, right? And so with Ms. Werner, one of the conversations is music theory something we should run every other year? And what would those implications be? Right? Would you get 14 kids if you did it every other year?
Would you get 7?
Or would you get 7 every other year, right? Because is it primarily only And so we have to look at those types of scenarios. This is a department where, because we had some flexibility at the elementary level, we're making the recommendation that we do go ahead and run that course to honor. These are our top music kids, that are probably many of them looking to do this type of thing in college, if not as a major, at least as a serious interest. And so it is a really positive course for those students. It's not the only course you would look at that is in single digits, but there are very few that are in single digits if you look through every sheet. But those are very, very fair questions. Those are conversations and decisions that can be made to say no, we're not going to, but then we have to have the ramifications of where then do those kids get and what are they getting and not, and what is it worth is really that point in terms of the elective pieces. But it's good for me to have the history of music theory.
Absolutely,
Thanks.
and I'll just add too, in speaking to students regularly regarding courses, I will tell you that they overwhelmingly want like a studio in music. A studio where you can mix and learn how to mix songs and produce records and that type of thing. That would be, as you can imagine, would just be very popular. So, and I had a student years ago try to start a petition for the tech school to start something like that. So, I think you would have that would explode.
And then for the few kids that would like to still take, does Bucks open that? Or to offer that? Do they have the AP music theory?
They can't offer AP courses because
Well,
those
but
are
like
high
their-
school.
the
So they
college
would
would-
have some level of music theory. Whether it would be accepted in other courses as a
Right.
college course or not, it would depend on their curriculum, and I don't know it well enough to know. Because in some cases, the answer is yes. Because you think about like biology. There is an AP biology, but that doesn't mean every college biology course is the same as an AP biology. That would have to do with the college and the curriculum. And so we would have to go one off in terms of what they offer. But that is one of the things to consider in some of the courses that don't, or the type of program Mr. Lebowski is talking about in terms of studio. If the community college had that kind of interest and our students could be part of that, and also community members, dual enrollment might then benefit from that standpoint, and our kids could still take it, but we don't have to invest in the studio, because that would not be a cheap investment in terms of getting a real music studio up and running. So,
Mixer
yeah,
board and
it's good.
stuff, yeah.
Mine's not a scheduling question. Looking at this reminded me that someone had asked me about choir. The only thing that we offer, I did honors, we offer honors symphonic band, but we don't have an honors option for any of our vocal, unless I'm missing it.
So concert choir would be the closest.
But that doesn't get an honors credit.
Correct. Does not get an honors credit.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure why that would be. That, I guess that's a
Right.
question, a curriculum.
It is a curriculum question.
but-
And if you remember when we talked about the Honors Wood 4,
Yeah.
which was the elective course that we talked about this year, one of the things we talked about was where are the equivalents in other departments and what will be the next conversation. So Dr. Scheid and I have had multiple conversations around are the recommendations we, as the administration, want to make in terms of courses like that.
Yeah.
Right, and obviously the reason band gets the honors credit is the marching band. It's not like the band kids are separated. It's the marching band component, and for that extra time they get the honors. Now the question is concert choir the same as that? Is chamber orchestra the same as that? We're going to have some of those conversations and make those decisions. But yeah,
I knew it had come up during the woodworking thing, but I couldn't
Yeah.
remember exactly what we had said, so I didn't want to
right, yeah.
give an answer.
At this point, they do not. So
And I noticed your punny, music B flat, you said music would be flat or something like that.
oh, nice.
Just now?
You didn't even
You
realize you
pun
made
when
the
you
pun?
don't
Didn't
even know it.
Didn't even know.
He's a natural
Lots of
punner.
fun.
That was very sharp for you to notice.
Just keep going.
Now, the other departments are all level from a staffing standpoint. So I'm going to ask Mr. Lebowski to look at each one of them so that you at least, and if we go in the order of the packet,
Yep, we can do that now.
that
Social
way
studies.
you can just give a brief scan if you have any questions, but
A number nine.
unless you have questions, we're not,
Yeah.
going to highlight as you answer things like that.
So if we look at social studies, AP European history, there were 4 requests. So we are not going to run it this year. It
Or
is,
maybe ever again, right?
Yeah.
Because we cannibalized it with world history, right, and American history, yes.
as you noted here, history A, B, C, and D are special ed courses, there are part-time learning support courses, they're not figured into this again. And again, here on the right are co-taught as well. So obviously not as many alternates, unless you get down here to some of the senior electives, which are at the bottom here. 35 for psychology. AP psychology is usually a popular course.
I'm surprised by the AP World History. I mean, well, I feel like it always ends up being the social studies classes where we end up with, a high number of kids who want to take a number that's high for one section, but not high enough for 2 sections, and then you end up with a larger class size. It seems to always happen in social studies for some reason.
Correct. You're right, absolutely. It's like AP World.
We call that a bad number in the business. That 32 is a bad number. Do you run 1 or 2? Right? So depending on the course, you make that determination, but that's.
Yeah, and that's what AP World's sitting at, 32 right now.
Especially with it being AP, because that's a lot.
I think that it has been for at least as long as I can remember, that's usually where it ends up, starting with Sam, my oldest, always seems to be right there.
Yeah, that fun.
And I think AP kids are somewhat you know, they can manage it, and that teacher she's excellent. You know, I've never heard of any problem. She really is sharp. Just, I mean, just right. So
You crossing good for the new
I am,
department?
no, good. But I think that's where it has been, and it seems to work. I would rather be, again, if you could make it smaller, I guess that would be fine, but I would never want to say, we're going to make it smaller by not having certain kids allowed to take it, because if they want to, that's fine, I always would rather have kids be able to take an AP than be rejected from it, so.
And then the tech school there, that's that top number, right, in terms of the total for tech school? Right? Is that what's next? I'm sorry?
Correct,
Right,
yes, so
okay.
tech school is next, and again, these numbers here, as you can see, I mean, students can certainly choose the course they want, but what I do, last year I started this, is I have the current students, when they register, they have to do this, they have to go on 2062, and those are the current students, and then here are new registrations, so these 100 are mostly, you know, new 10th graders maybe, but mostly are incoming 8th graders. That's what these numbers are representing.
And there's that 304 that we talked about earlier, that was 278 at this time last year in terms of requests, so that's a positive trend.
The only problem with that is, as those numbers approach 800 or so, 825,
You're
I think
gonna
it
be
is.
capped over
Right.
there.
Because
Right.
the courses are capped in the number of students in each course, fewer of them will get their first choice.
Right, right, and we'll have to keep monitoring that now. Right now, we have some space, but
Mathematics is next.
there's nice round numbers in math.
Yeah, look at that, you like that.
It's also interesting that those social studies numbers, they have no alternates either.
Because they're required courses,
So,
so you have to get it.
But for AP, like if you
Um,
haven't, you can't do any US history, then you would want US.
There's some, not many, yeah. There are far fewer content.
Incre Math 1 is dropped this year. We had 3 students. And math, you know, basically we're flat in math. The same numbers last year, same number of teachers. Our AP numbers are here, with the AP courses are at the top. As you know, there was a new math sequence in the middle school. And that's sort of, that plays out as we go along the next couple of years through the cycle here.
Any questions on math?
Nope. Another one.
All right.
Again, one of those courses that never seems to grow is AP Computer Science.
So-
Yep. Yep,
It's always been
right.
around that number, doesn't get big, like some of the others do with the bigger classes or more students or whatever.
Right.
So
Yes.
that would be the same as one of
Fixed.
30. So why is the decision different? Is it
Yeah,
because of
so
staffing?
if you go up to the top, right, a really good question. If you look at the second one, AP Calc BC, we were just looking at, were they social studies courses? Where we had an AP of 30 and AP of 32, and we ran them at one section. You have an AP BC of 30 students, we're recommending 2 sections. And that, it has to do with the existing staffing. So it has to do with, in terms of your flexibility, in terms of your math staffing and your social studies staffing, right? And so how many sections can you run with 20 teachers? How many sections can you run? I think social studies had 22 teachers or whatever that is. And so it is exactly that in terms of, if you were to allocate 2 for AP World, where would you take a section from someplace else? Because again, you are unlikely to find 0.2 of a social studies teacher to come in and do that. So, yep. Yep. So that would come back and forth in different years depending
sense,
on
yeah.
where the requests are.
Well, where you take it from would be AP Psychology, if you look there.
Right, exactly
But I
right.
assume
You could.
that the course grows, is that correct? Potentially?
Potentially, but it actually dropped more than, it has to be 100. So this year it dropped, so,
No, but in terms of, from the hold report, yes.
correct.
Not from the
Right,
request,
right.
but the hold report, it does, in fact, hold and actually increase. So,
Next
Alright.
tab I have is ESL, and Yeah, these numbers are, we have Mrs. Baker, full-time ESL teacher, we have Mrs. Hayes, who's appointed to at the high school, we shared her with middle school. These numbers really are, these will increase the WIDA scores, the students have to take the WIDA test, which the results come out